Like, how does
Yeah,
that
how did
happen?
this get to this point? Because I'm young. I wasn't around when I was born when AOL was like starting to phase out. So,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
in those days, was it as intrusive? Were things as intrusive? Like when did this kind of get to this point where data is so commodifiable?
Yeah, this is a standard academic answer, but I'd want to ask like a historian of technology to be precise. But it's relatively recent. It's certainly. I mean, targeted ads have been around for a long
Hmm.
time, and data analytics have been around for a long time, and building models that allow us to make sort of like the insurance industry is built on building really accurate models for really strange circumstances, right? Like you get insurance for floods or for climate stuff. So like this kind of tool has been part of our repertoire for a long time. But what's really happened post that AOL moment, like during your lifetime, is the ability to amass huge amounts of data that lets you mine them for correlations that let you do this kind of privacy invasive inference or to use it for really important decision making. So before we didn't have enough data to make accurate. So there are recidivism prediction algorithms, for example, that like you put in someone's police record and it will tell you how much a risk they are to violate parole. You need a ton of data to do that kind of thing. And so it's only in the time when we've had a lot of people using the internet and a lot of ability to store and comb through that data or build and advances in computer science that build algorithms to learn on the basis of that data that you really face the current instantiation of this problem. It's not necessarily a new problem, but its pervasiveness has grown. Um, and what's going to get people to it's a part of the problem is the problem is a little bit hidden, right? Because um, the data breaches don't feel that, or like the ways in which these companies make invasive inferences are almost in a certain sense hidden from you. Like we're in other areas where we have really robust regulation. I don't know. So like biomedical research, like we have really robust protections for human subject research, and we have really robust protections for animal subject research. But that only came about because of really in your face violations of rights. In the case of animal subject research, people were having their dogs kidnapped or taken or stolen and then sold to medical research facilities, and this ultimately led to oversight for animal research. And in the human case, there's just a whole history of abuse of patients. And then eventually something happens. But here it's harder to see what that's going to be because the headlines come out every day and it just doesn't feel, it's not like my dog gets stolen. It's like hard to see the ways in which I'm violated
Right.
by the things these companies are doing.
Yeah, that's a good point because it's not concrete like you're saying. It's not. It's almost like an abstract idea.
Yeah, and some of the problems are just broadly social, and we're just really bad at thinking about like or being in impact. Like so, climate change is a good example of this. Like it's hard to feel the impact individually unless you're in one of the places that gets flooded, or it's like it's hard to see. It's hard to connect the global phenomena of climate change, for example, with the discrete climate disasters. Um, and so collective problems are really hard for us. So like one of the biggest scandals associated with big data is Cambridge Analytica, where people were getting targeted ads trying to influence their vote. But it's hard for us to feel as an individual like I was attacked personally or something like that. I mean, we're just bad at. We just don't think that way typically, I
Right.
think.
And I mean, where you probably could factor in that we're so used to it at this point that it's not even. We know for sure that if we talk about you know something specific around our phone, or if we searched something one time, or you clicked on one ad, we know that we're probably going to get a plethora of things related to it.
Yeah, it's interesting. There, it is. You're totally right that it's sort of like the ways in which these tools sort of collect our information and use our information is just sort of part of our background experience of the internet or social media. But at the same time, where people are incredibly skeptical of the tech companies. So like at the start of the pandemic, together, Google and Apple, alongside some other people, developed a COVID tracking app. And it was a piece of software you put on your phone, and it sort of could tell when you were near someone that then tested positive. But technologically, it was kind of a marvel because it was really privacy preserving because they knew no one was going to use this thing if it didn't protect privacy. So like all the data was kept only on your device, and Google couldn't have access to it. Apple couldn't have access to it. So it was a really robust system, but nobody would use it because they're like, no, Google and Apple are just collecting our
Sure.
data. Meanwhile, they're clicking on things that are giving them their data for free, 5 minutes later. So it's sort of this weird, like everyone knows the tech companies are doing it and doesn't like it. But then you're right that like in our device use, like in our everyday behavior, we don't do much, and I'm included. Like I don't do much to protect my privacy or to not give up that kind of data.